Holes.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we thank you for being here, Barnaby.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're pulling a specific thread in commercial and agricultural real estate, something that can be a real deal killer, but it operates, almost entirely unseen.
Yeah, we're talking about wastewater treatment lagoons, private ones.
Exactly. And it's this strange paradox, isn't it? I mean, buyers seem okay with old wells. They'll budget for a new septic field.
Oh, yeah.
But you say private lagoon or maybe retention pond, and suddenly the air goes cold. Lenders freeze up.
It's instant. The deal just starts to wobble, and it often comes completely out of left field.
Absolutely. So today we're digging into what we're calling the lagoon lie. This pervasive idea that any private wastewater system, especially older ones, is automatically a huge environmental risk.
And this lie, this myth, it quietly kills perfectly good deals all the time. It's frustrating.
So our mission today is to trace where this fear comes from. Look at that bureaucratic fear loop, that domino effect you mentioned. And critically, lay out the steps, the documentation strategy you need to turn that fear, that lender paranoia, into solid evidence.
Right. Let's unpack this regulatory ghost story. It's quite something.
Okay, so where did it start? Let's go back. You said 70s, 80s. These lagoons were standard.
Oh, absolutely. They were the standard, particularly for rural setups. Think campgrounds, small factories, remote communities, big farms, anywhere you didn't have city sewer access.
And what made them so popular then?
Well, they were relatively cheap to build. They used natural processes, sunlight, bacteria, algae, so operating costs were low. Pretty low maintenance compared to, say, a mechanical treatment plant.
Reliable, practical, decentralized wastewater treatment.
Exactly. They were the workhorse.
And yet, fast forward to today, and they're treated like, well, you said it, unexploded ordnance. How did we get from reliable standard to toxic liability?
Well, it was a slow burn, really. A few things happened. Environmental regulations got much stricter, starting with the Clean Water Act and evolving from there. The infrastructure itself aged, naturally. And then critically, you had a few, let's call them environmental horror stories. Highly publicized cases where lagoons were truly neglected, failed spectacularly, and caused real pollution.
The bad headlines.
The bad headlines. And those stories, even though they were outliers, they kind of painted all lagoons with the same brush. A few bad apples spoiled the perception for everyone.
So it's like a regulatory echo. One or two major problems from decades ago are now, weaponized against systems that are actually working fine today.
That's pretty much it. The lagoons themselves, if maintained, function the same. But the paperwork, the perception, the regulations around them changed everything.
They became paper liabilities.
Precisely. So now, the mere presence of a lagoon on a property triggers this maximum risk response from lenders, attorneys, sometimes even city inspectors.
And that automatically means Phase I.
Mandatory Phase I environmental assessment. Almost always. It's like the bureaucratic version of DEFCON 1, as you said.
Right. But the key insight here, and this is huge, is that most lagoons probably don't leak. Most are probably fine.
If they've been reasonably maintained, yes.
But that bad press from, 30 years ago has basically created this lasting stigma in the finance world.
That stigma is the liability. It's the deal killer. So if you're involved in a deal with a lagoon, you absolutely have to understand how this plays out.
Okay, let's talk about that. You called it the buyer's fear loop, the domino effect.
Right. It's usually a 5-step process that sinks the deal.
Walk us through it. Step 1.
Step 1, the buyer, maybe just making conversation or during due diligence, mentions the lagoon to their lender. Or maybe the lender's attorney spots it on a survey.
Innocently enough.
Totally. But that's the trigger. Step 2, the lender's underwriting team, who are, paid to avoid risk, they see lagoon, they think non-standard potential environmental issue, red flag goes up.
They don't know wastewater systems, they just know.
They just know it's different and potentially risky. So they order that Phase I report. It's standard procedure for them now.
Okay. Phase I ordered. Step 3. This is where it gets tricky, right? The consultant comes in.
Yeah. And the consultant doing the Phase I, their job isn't really to say this land is clean. Their job fundamentally is to protect the lender by identifying any potential risk, any recognized environmental condition, or REC.
And a lagoon, just by existing.
Just by existing and holding wastewater, even treated wastewater, it is a potential source of contamination. So guess what the Phase I report almost always finds?
Of REC, a potential concern.
Exactly. Even if the lagoon is lined, permitted, inspected, and functioning perfectly, the report will flag it as a REC simply because of what it is. It knows the potential for a problem.
So the consultant does their job, identifies the theoretical risk, and now we hit step 4, the money wall.
Yep. The Phase I report comes back saying REC identified, further investigation recommended, which means recommending Phase 2 testing.
And phase 2 means?
Phase 2 means actual soil borings, water sampling, sludge testing. It's intrusive, it's expensive. Think $5,000 to $15,000 easy.
Yeah.
And critically, it adds delay. Usually at least 30 days, often more, right when you're trying to close.
So sudden cost, sudden delay.
Momentum killer.
Total momentum killer. And that leads right into step 5. The deal dies. The buyer gets spooked by the cost and the uncertainty. The lender sees the potential concern formalized in writing.
And the buyer demands a big price cut, a retrade, or just walks.
Or just walks. Happens all the time.
So the really crucial point here, the one people need to grasp, is that it's rarely the actual lagoon, the actual contamination that kills the deal.
Almost never, in many cases. It's the paperwork. It's the recommendation for more testing. It's the uncertainty. The problem isn't contamination. We call it contamination of confidence.
Contamination of confidence. I like that. That really captures it. It implies sellers need to manage perceptions, manage the narrative as much as the physical asset.
100%. Uncertainty is poison in finance. If you can't provide certainty, the lender just assumes the worst-case scenario. Which brings us to the reports themselves. Phase I versus Phase 2. You need to understand the difference.
Absolutely. Critical distinction.
So break it down simply. Phase 1.
Phase I ESA environmental site assessment. It's basically a background check and a walk around, records review, historical photos, database searches, talking to people, a visual inspection, crucially, non-intrusive.
No digging, no sampling.
No sampling. It only looks for potential issues, red flags. Our source material actually called Phase I reports gossip, which is kind of perfect.
Okay, gossip. Then Phase 2 is?
Phase 2 is the truth, according to the source. This is where they actually get dirty. They drill, they take soil samples, water samples, maybe test the sludge at the bottom.
They're looking for hard evidence to confirm or deny the gossip from Phase 1.
Exactly. It proves whether there actually is contamination or not.
But the tragedy, going back to the fear loop, is that lenders often pull the plug based just on the Phase I gossip, right? They don't wait for the Phase 2 truth.
Very often, yes. They see potential concern or REC identified in the Phase I, and that's enough. Funding freezes. They're paralyzed by the recommendation for more study, by the uncertainty.
It's pure risk avoidance, not actual risk assessment at that point.
It really is. And that quote you mentioned from the research really hits it. Phase I reports don't measure pollution, they measure paranoia.
Wow. Okay. So let's shift from the paranoia to the science. Assuming a lagoon is properly permitted, properly maintained, how do they actually work? What's the reality?
The reality is, when done right, they're very effective, very stable systems. They use natural processes. Bacteria break down organic waste. Sunlight kills pathogens. Algae produce oxygen. It's a little ecosystem.
Low energy, pretty self-sufficient.
Very low energy compared to mechanical plants. The main inputs are sunlight and time.
So what does properly maintained actually involve? What keeps them compliant and prevents them from becoming real problems?
It's mostly basic upkeep, honestly. Regular inspections are key. You need rigorous vegetation control. You can't have trees or deep-rooted weeds growing on the berms.
Why not? What do the roots do?
The roots can penetrate the liner, if there is one, or compromise the compacted clay structure of the berms, leading to leaks. Bad news.
Okay, no trees on the berms. What else?
You need sound fencing, obviously, for safety and access control. Erosion control on the slopes of the berms is important. And then there's a really critical element called freeboard.
Freeboard. That's the space between the water level and the top of the berm, right? The safety margin.
Exactly. It's your buffer capacity. Why it's so critical for lenders is because lack of freeboard means high risk of overflow.
Like during a big storm or snowmelt.
Precisely. If that lagoon overflows, that's an unpermitted discharge. That's an immediate environmental violation, likely fines, and guaranteed contamination event in the lender's mind. They need to see that buffer space.
Makes total sense. So fundamentally, the technology is sound. The real issue, the fuel for the fear machine, is often neglect, and maybe even more importantly, missing paperwork.
Huge factor. You could have a perfectly functioning lagoon, but if you don't have the permits, the inspection logs, the water test results, it's invisible to the underwriter.
It's like that quote you mentioned. A lagoon without paperwork is like a safe without a combination. It might be fine, but no one can prove it.
Exactly. And that lack of proof is where the fear rushes in.
Okay, so this means sellers can fight back proactively. The goal is to get ahead of the fear, control the narrative with actual evidence before the buyer even starts their due diligence.
Beat them to the punch. Beat them to the report.
All right, let's get practical. What's the checklist? What do you absolutely need to have ready before you list, or at least on day one?
Okay, 5 key things. Number 1, get your permit documentation in order. That means the NPDES permit National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System or the state equivalent.
And make sure it's current and valid. Why is the NPDES so important?
Because unlike a simple septic permit, an NPDES permit shows the system is regulated by the EPA or the state environmental agency. It means there are discharge limits, monitoring requirements, regular reporting. It proves oversight.
Okay, proof of regulation. Number 2.
Maintain detailed, up-to-date inspection logs and any required water test records. You need to show a consistent history of compliance, not just a single clean test.
Right, the track record matters.
3. Photographic evidence, good quality, dated photos. Show the fencing is intact, proper signage is up, the berms look solid, no erosion, and clearly show that freeboard that space between water and top of berm.
Visual proof. It counters abstract fear. 4.
Try to get a letter of compliance from your local health department or state environmental agency contact. That third-party government validation can be incredibly powerful. It's as close to a clean bill of health as you can get without a phase 2.
Okay, permit, logs, photos, compliance letter. And number 5, you call this the power play.
Yeah, especially if the system's older or you're in a market that's particularly sensitive about environmental stuff. Proactively order your own Phase I ESA.
Order your own report. Isn't that risky? What if it finds something?
That's the point. If your consultant finds a potential issue, maybe needs a little berm repair, or suggests updating signage you find out privately, you fix it before you list. You control the information.
So you address problems on your own terms.
Exactly. And if your Phase I comes back clean, or only identifies minor, easily explained things, you provide that report up front to the buyer and their lender. You've already done their homework for them. You've preempted their fear-based process.
You've taken control. Every document turns fear into evidence.
And that quote summarizes it perfectly. Beat them to the report and you beat them to the retrade. You avoid that last-minute discount demand.
Okay, now we have to be honest. Sometimes the Lagoon is the problem, right? You can't just paper over a failing system.
Absolutely not. Integrity matters. Sometimes remediation is necessary.
So what are the undeniable red flags, the things that shout real liability, not just paperwork issue?
Well, obvious visual failures are first. Broken or severely eroded berms, evidence or history of overflows like stained ground outside the lagoon, that's bad.
What about the vegetation again?
Yeah, if you see large trees or really dense cattails growing inside the lagoon basin or deeply rooted on the berms, that signals potential structural issues or that the system isn't functioning correctly biologically. Major red flag.
An actual discharge.
If you see water flowing out where it's not supposed to surface discharge, where none is permitted, that's an active violation. Big trouble.
And finally, the paperwork itself can be a red flag.
Definitely. Expired permits, incomplete renewal applications. That tells a lender the owner isn't managing the system properly. Even if it looks okay visually, compliance failure is a deal risk.
So the basic rule is,
Yeah.
if it looks bad, smells bad, or the paperwork's expired, fix it first.
Fix it before you list. Because buyers might forgive age, but as the source said, buyers forgive age not odor or obvious neglect.
That's memorable. Okay, so let's say the system is compliant. You've got your documentation. You still have to deal with the buyer's inherent fear, right? The unfamiliarity.
Yes, you need to educate them proactively. Don't let them rely on Google horror stories.
So what does that education look like?
Send them the good stuff immediately. Your positive compliance letter, those clear photos, maybe even links to EPA or state websites that explain how lagoons work effectively and safely. Be transparent.
Offer to walk the site with them. Meet their consultant.
Absolutely. Offer to meet the environmental consultant on site. Answer questions openly. Show them the system. Explain the maintenance. Build trust through transparency. Don't be defensive.
Because the goal is to shake the narrative before the lender's lawyer or some scary Phase I report writes a fearful one for you.
Exactly. Remember, most deals don't die from findings, they die from silence. That silence lets fear take over.
Okay, let's bring it all together. The core message seems to be, this lagoon lie, this fear, has killed more deals than actual pollution probably ever has. and it thrives on unknowns and missing documents.
That's the heart of it. Fear lives in the unknown. If you replace the unknown with clear, documented evidence, you neutralize the fear. You control the story.
Now, what about the absolute worst-case scenario? You've done everything right, documentation is perfect, but the stigma associated with lagoons in your specific market is just too strong. Is there a final backup plan?
Yes. Show future options. Show you've thought beyond the lagoon. Proactively get a cost estimate for connecting to the city sewer system, even if it's planned for years down the road.
To show there's an eventual exit strategy from the lagoon.
Right. Or if sewer connection isn't realistic, get a quote for replacing the lagoon with a different technology, like a modern package treatment plant or an aeration system.
So you present these alternatives up front.
Yes. Presenting those options with costs shows the buyer and lender two things. One, you acknowledge the long-term perception issue. Two, you've identified a viable, costed solution if they ever want or need to move away from the lagoon.
It shows initiative. It shows you're managing the risk proactively.
And that initiative, that planning, can be incredibly valuable. As the source put it, sometimes presenting a solid plan is more valuable than a pond.
Okay, so here's the final thought for everyone listening, the takeaway from this deep dive. If you understand your wastewater system, if you meticulously document its compliance before you need to, and if you actively control the narrative with facts, you can overcome the fear. You can survive the inspection, the buyer, and the banker.
Because really, in this corner of the real estate world, the dirtiest thing often isn't the lagoon itself.
It's the paperwork about it.
Yeah.
Or the lack thereof.
Exactly. So take a look at your own files. Is your documentation ready?
Excellent point. Thanks for diving in with us today. We'll catch you next time.